Welcome to Long Blue Leadership, the podcast where we share insights on leadership through the lives and experiences of Air Force Academy graduates. I'm Navira Walkowitz, class of '99. I'm honored to join you from the NovaCare Complex, the training facility for the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles here in Pennsylvania. But I'm especially excited to bring you a conversation with my Air Force Academy classmate and friend, Jemal Singleton, the Eagles running backs and assistant head coach. Both on and off the field, Coach Singleton brings a wealth of leadership experience gleaned from his time in the U.S. Air Force and the NFL. This unique blend has made him a builder of high-performance teams, as well as a standout mentor and motivator. Jamal and I will dive into what it means to lead with conviction, to earn trust in high-pressure environments, and to acquire the mindset needed to bring out the best in people, whether you're on the gridiron, battlefield, or in the boardroom. We'll talk about how Coach Singleton learned to connect with people through immersive cultural experiences. We'll talk about the coaches in his life who helped him see players for the people they're becoming first. And we'll discuss how a rocky start in professional football ultimately taught him patience and perseverance. So get ready to be inspired. Let's talk leadership, game planning, and more with Coach Jemal Singleton. Jamal, welcome to Long Blue Leadership, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I can't tell you how awesome this is.
Yes.
To have the opportunity to be on this show, that in the past couple of years, some of the people that have sat in this chair have been unbelievable. I mean, Lieutenant Henderson, Captain America on
Yes.
the show, which was awesome. There's two men that I have great respect for, with General Gould and General Clark. They were also on this show. So
Yes.
to have little old me sitting up here is really an amazing thing. I kind of feel like with us, we're like the meme, the Paul Rudd.
Yes.
Hey, look at us, classmates and
That's right.
good friends. So this is a definite joy and honor for me to be here today.
Well, thank you so much for that. I feel like we blinked, 25 years went by, but here we are together again.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'd like to take us right to the moment. I mean, most recently, Super Bowl champions. It was a kind of a 2-season road, right? Let's talk about the moment maybe on the field where you knew you guys were about to win. Can you talk us through what that moment was like?
I tell you, it's one of those highs in life that I'll obviously always remember. The greatest thing was really how the game played out. Not very often in the NFL are you up. Are you kind of having some backups in the game because of the parity in the league? So for us to be on the world's biggest stage, the world's biggest game for us in football, and to have a little bit of moment to just take a deep breath, look around the stands, look at the sidelines, and just take it all in was unbelievable. So just to come away with that victory and to have that opportunity, you don't get that, to sit back and look and say, oh my gosh, we just won. Right. The game hadn't ended, but it was kind of done at that point. So such an amazing feeling, such an amazing vibe, and just so many different storylines that led to that great finish. So just unbelievable day.
What was the leadership coaching words that you shared with the team before the start of the game? Because you had come from a season where you got to that spot and you lost. What would you share with the team before this game?
I think it's part of it is you had so many guys that had, been to the previous Super Bowl with us and lost. So we had experienced getting to the pinnacle and not finishing. And really, there wasn't a whole lot that had to be said. In my role, I talk about ball security and protection, so I have a lot of presentations during the week that I give. But that week leading up, when we were in New Orleans, there was a level of focus in the men's eyes that was awesome. As a coach, to see, they don't need to be hyped up. They don't need to be pushed. This team is exactly where it needs to be was an amazing moment. So again, to have the Super Bowl win and that feeling, also to have kind of a coaching moment to see a team so motivated and so dialed in made it even more special.
Wow. So you talk about it being a journey and coming to that moment of focus. Let's talk about your journey. Let's go back in time a little bit. Jamal, who are you? What were you like as a kid?
I really had an interesting background growing up, and it was, part of it was the military. My dad was in the Air Force, enlisted. I'm actually retired after 20 years, but met my mom when he was stationed in England. They moved to Turkey, and there's where I enter the picture. And being born in Turkey, my mother wanted me to have a Turkish name, wanted me to take the spelling of it, and it was Jamal. Originally, I think she had Ahmet Mustafa was the name, and my father's like, no, we're not doing that. So thanks to my dad for helping me. We stuck with Jamal. So Jamal David is my first names, and really took the Turkish spelling, so Jemal. That in Arabic it is referred to as the good-looking one. So
Okay.
hopefully I'm living up to my name a little bit. But that
mom
was
knew.
just that she did. And but that was the start. That was kind of the start of, and from there, just the journeys and the travels that we did through the military. So as a military brat, and I know there's quite a few out there in this world, but moved a lot. Jumped around. We went back to England. So that's really my first memories. I don't remember anything of Turkey. I just know I was born there. But we went to England, and those are where my first memories started. And that was kind of like home. My mom being from there, had a lot of family and relatives over there. And that just kind of started to shape the rest of my life. And in coaching, kind of was very military. Like, we were moving. I was going to different places. And I think I was prepared for a lot of that movement stuff when I was a kid.
Wow. So you were moving a lot. You talked about how that kind of parallels, and we'll talk about this probably later in coaching, what that looks like. But as a military dependent, as a kid in the military, what was that like? How did that form you as maybe like someone who adapts to things? And did you start to early on shape your leadership ways as a kid?
I think so. I think for some brats, the lifestyle's not great. You struggle. You're moving every 3 years. You're making new friends. But really, for me, I think it really shaped me. It allowed me to build a personality that I could be engaging, to build a personality and athletic ability to play sports. And that's usually how, walking as the new kid in the room, I was able to build friendships, was through sports and through teams and all that. And like you said, every 3 years we were moving and doing it. So I got to rehash that every 3 years of, okay, how do I make new friends? How do I, compete in sports again? But it really did help me, I think, to be able to exist in those environments and build those relationships as a kid. And I think it's allowed the same thing even as an adult. I go back to some of those same ways of how I connected with people when I was a young man.
I love that. And so was your family very active in your athletic pursuits when you were a child, or that kind of happened later in life?
Absolutely. So I had an older brother that was living with us that also, he was very active in sports. So he's 8 years older than me. So there's a good separation. So I kind of got to see some things kind of play out before I ever got to him. But yeah, sports was always a part of our family, from everything from golf to football to track to basketball, all the things you could play. I mean, when you grow up overseas on bases, you have to play all the sports. If in order to put together a full team, there's not that many people there. You need all the hands on deck to be able to do that. So played a lot of sports growing up in Europe. So people are like, oh, well, when did you get into football? I've been playing football my whole life. And it didn't stop in Germany. It didn't stop in England. It didn't stop in the other places that we were able to live.
So you talk about athletics being a big part of who you are. You mentioned that your mom and dad, like your dad gave her some feedback on the name she initially wanted. Talk about that dynamic a little bit. How have your parents shaped you as who you are and as a leader?
It's just as unique as my upbringing, where we lived and where we moved, I think, is really the house that I lived in. My mother being a very posh British lady, and then my dad from Louisiana down Baton Rouge, kind of coming from the South. It was a very unique, not only culturally, just personality-wise. So I think I really took things from both of them. I do kind of laugh. My mother was big on etiquette. So at the academy, the etiquette training wasn't a big deal for me.
You already knew it, though.
I already knew it. I've had my knuckles smacked with a spoon a couple times. But so just that, it was a really dynamic. And even living in England and growing up, went to plays at these amazing theaters and got to see kind of the art side. And then I really know the way to put it, but more the street sense of my father, and just, growing up, just kind of how he grew up, maybe in a rough neighborhood. And, the military changed his life trajectory. And I think just having those combinations of things is kind of who I am.
So was it your father who then helped you see the academy as the potential next step for you?
You would think so, but it is funny. My academy story is a little bit different. It was when I got a recruiting letter from Air Force when I was playing high school ball of that. And this is bad. I didn't know the academy existed. My dad was in the military, we traveled, but I definitely didn't know that they played Division I college football and had a football team. So that was the first, and I just remember my mom she was like, oh, the Air Force Academy. And like, it was a big thing. And as crazy as my dad was always like, if you go to the military, I really like you to get your education and be an officer. So both of my parents were kind of happy. And it wasn't right away. I was like, yeah, this is definitely something I'm going to do. It just kind of a process that went. And the more I learned about it, I was like, what's not to like? I'm going to have an opportunity to play Division I college football, which is something that's big for me. I'm going to have a great career, be able to be in the military when I graduate. I'm going to have a chance to get a great education while I'm at school. I was like, okay, what's the catch? What's going on? And it was something that really kind of opened my eyes to that. And really was the main school that was recruiting me at the time. I had some Ivy Leagues because of grades, but I wanted to play at Air Force and put the bolts on my helmet.
So what was it about, you said, the fact that both your parents were really supportive, but was there a moment where you just knew, besides the fact that they were heavily recruiting you, was there something that intrinsically you just knew, like, I want to go here?
It's funny. I've always been, hey, I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to go all in. And that was it. When I decided, hey, Air Force is where I'm going to school, that was it. And I wasn't really highly recruited. I didn't take a recruiting trip or anything. The first time I showed up at the Air Force Academy Prep School was in processing.
Wow.
And I didn't need to see it. I had made up my mind that's where I was going and that's what I was doing. So it wasn't anything that was going to hold me back from that. And gosh, I just look back and how thankful I am that as an 18-year-old kid, I was able to make a decision that was going to impact my life so greatly. And I'm just so thankful every day when I think about it.
Mm-hmm. Gosh. I mean, I'm going back in time a little bit, and I'm picturing you now arriving at the academy for the first time, and you went to the prep school, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's talk about that experience. I imagine it was a little bit of shell shock then, having not actually stepped foot there before. What was that experience like for you?
It was great. And I felt like I was prepared for the reason my dad and my brother had actually served in the Air Force as well. So he did a stint enlisted as well. And I just remember it was almost like we're sitting at the table talking football type stuff, but they're like, yeah, when you get to basic training, you have to do this. So they're like hyping me up for how hard and how tough basic training is going to be and what I got to do. And so part of me is like, well, I'm take this challenge. I'm gonna go. 'Cause we've had these same conversations after football games. So I had two coaches really, but I really felt I was somewhat prepared. I was prepared for the physical nature of it. The military lifestyle wasn't something I wasn't afraid of wearing a uniform or those type of thing. And it was great. It was a great opportunity for me. I was surrounded by some great people, both, cadet candidates and, some of the officers and military training officers we had there, plus some of the prior enlisted members that go there, the chance to learn from them. They've been in the Air Force, they've done it, and now they're taking this new trail. So it was great. It was a great opportunity for me to kind of start my journey in the military and through leadership.
Well, and early on, you were identified as a leader. You were the Bravo Squadron commander for the prep school. What was it like leading your peers, right? So you just mentioned, whether they came in as cadet candidates, through athletics, through prior enlisted members, they were your peers. How did you do that?
Yeah, I'd kind of been like the leadership stuff I'd always had surrounding football. I'd been a team captain and those type, and kind of knew how to lead and my voice in that realm. This was a total departure of that because really nobody in that building cared that I played football. And being the squadron commander at that point, it was like, okay, well, how do I lead people that are really my peers, as you mentioned, same age, same group? And then not only that, I'm leading some guys that have already done the Air Force, and they have been in the Air Force for multiple years or older. How do I do it? And I think that's the first place that I really learned that, hey, you have to be able to lead people from where they're at. It's becoming a part of who they are, connecting with them. Because then they're not going to care how your leadership's out if they don't feel that you care about them. And I really felt that, okay, I was going to lead by example, and then I was going to try and connect with as many people in the building as I possibly could in a way beyond what I've done before in my lifetime. And so it was a great experience for me. It was tough, some hard times and spent some late nights doing some things preparing for inspections. But honestly, that being able to lead in a totally different environment than what I was used to and for my peers was tremendous in my growth.
Can you share an example of how that came about? Because was it something you just adopted on the fly? Was it something you saw from another leader, perhaps your parent or a coach? But what helped you realize I can't approach this the way I've always approached it on the field?
Well, right from the get-go is like I could lead by example on a football field relatively easy. I just work hard. That's it, work hard and do some things. And I was fortunate enough to be a relatively good player that allowed me to make plays. So there's that piece. Well, how can I make that conversion in a military environment in a squadron with some non-athletes? And there were some similarities, but as I go back to, it was like, okay, I was going to make friends on a football team because we worked together. We're doing the exact same experience. Well, I'm not going through the exact same experience as everybody in that building. A lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different thought processes and all that. So it's really, it kind of hit me in the face. It's like, you can't lead the same. And that has helped me tremendously when it comes to coaching players is, I can't coach every player the exact same way. And I've always felt I can stand in a room and say, this is my way, this is how I do it. And I'm going to lose half of my room. Whereas when I can learn to connect and learn, okay, what motivates this person? What gets them to reach their full potential? What do I have to do? And it's individual for everyone. it helps. And I really kind of tried to take that mode way back then. And I think there was some success. People didn't hate me that I know of, but it was just an unbelievable time of just learning a different type of leadership that allowed me to kind of grow and do some better things as I move forward.
That's fascinating. So then you went on to the Air Force Academy. You did 4 years there. And talk about a little bit your own personal growth journey there as a leader, because you had some very quick wins, I think, in the prep school. Were there moments where you further grew at the academy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the academy can test you. It truly can. And I think it's sometimes in a very positive way that sets you up for success, but other ways where you're going to fail. And I think part of the curriculum, part of that is you have to experience some of that failure in order to grow potentially. I mean, I bring up a story and it does affect me. It's as a kid, when I was coming through there, first time you go to basic training, and I was like, yeah, I'm athletic, I'm a football player, I can do all this stuff. Well, I get stuck in a tunnel. And it's, we all, the basic training, you're in there, and I'm in this tunnel with dirt, and I'm stuck, and I literally think I'm about to die.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm stuck. My arms are caved in. I'm stressed. I've got the rubber ducky or rubber M16 that I'm holding. My helmet's falling on my face. And I went through some life moments in that tunnel of dirt. And it's funny to tell you, I thought I was going to die. And it's, I had to really adjust my mindset. I had to get all the panic out of me. I had to breathe and then continue on. And it's like, an obstacle like that seems simple, was very strong. I always look back, it's like, I've done tough things in my life, right? And some of it was set up by the Air Force Academy, but being able to overcome those things by taking a deep breath, assessing exactly what's going on, let's evaluate this issue and let's find the best way to do this. And I think that has just set the stage for that. And it's a funny, like I said, a funny story as a cadet.
Funny now, probably.
Yeah, funny now. I can laugh now. But it was, but those little steps, those little situations showed up all the time where the academy, you truly get extended. You get pushed beyond your limits to see what your limits truly are. Mm-hmm. And whether that's in water survival, whether that's...
Let's go back to water survival for a moment, because I remember jumping off the 10 meter, having to swim underwater, just preparing, well, this might be it for me. Let's talk about that experience for you.
So because I don't know why all these great stories are where I think I'm going to die, but there's multiple. So no, I'm in water survival. I'm not a great swimmer. Never been a great swimmer. I started out in basic swimming, all that good stuff. Well, a little bit stocky, a little thick, so I don't float well either. Part of the training was we were learning how to, I had BDUs on, I'd take my pants off, do the flip, get the flotation device. Well, jump in the deep end and I start to, move my pants to be able to do that. Not realizing I've sunk to the bottom of this and I start to swim. I don't have enough breath. I'm not going to make it to the top of this water. So I'm doing everything I possibly can. I'm like, just on the instructor sees me struggling. I finally get stopped, yanks me up and pulls me up there. And I'm like, what am I doing? This is crazy. But again, it's basically faced a big fear, and then I learned to swim better, and then I got a little bit better working, and I jumped off the big 10 meter, 5 meter,
10 meter.
Oh, that we had to jump off of, and all those things. But it's funny when I look back, and it's really this conversation is bringing out a lot of these memories of, the little things, the little notches in time of me doing something at the academy that I would have never done anywhere else. Being in basic training, going through a tunnel, almost drowning in water survival, in soaring, flying in a glider, my thought, jumping out of an airplane when I took the jump program. All those little things are like, just pile up and like build your strength, your power, your stamina, all these amazing things and then you throw in the fact of college football and athletics and a bunch of the things that had to go on there. Man, it's a pretty cool time.
Well, I don't know if my time was as fun. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's pretty remarkable. And you talked about, and then going into athletics, because your path is not very common. I mean, we usually have a 5-year commitment or a 10 if you go into pilot training. What was that like for you when we graduated then, and how did you get into this space?
I was one of those guys. I was pilot qualified when I got to the academies, passed all the medical stuff, and wasn't like somebody was like, hey, I want to fly. I'm going to be a pilot. I'm knee-high to a grasshopper. I want to fly. It wasn't for me. It was an opportunity that presented itself again at the academy. And I was like, oh man. And so that became what I was going to do. I was going to fly. I was going to be a pilot. I fell in love with the A-10. I felt it was like me. It was built like me. It's tank killer. And I was like, and I remember, I'll never forget, I watched a show and there was a clip about it getting shot. And this A-10 had got his wing shot, all that, and still was capable to fly and land. I was like, that's what I'm flying. And that was it. And that was the plan. So I was going to be a pilot. Started introductory to flight training at the academy after I graduated, while I was also at the prep school. Went back there and I was able to be one of the military training officers down there and coach with the football team. I fell in love with coaching. I did. I fell head over heels for it, and I enjoyed flying. But there was a different feeling when I was on the field coaching, and I didn't know that I'd miss football as much until I was around it again. And I've told my daughter this plenty of times, is like, find what you're passionate about and do that. And if you do, you won't work a day in your life. And so I had this tough decision to make was, am I going to give up a pilot slot? Do you know how many people would die for this opportunity that want to fly and probably can't? So it was a hard process for me to make that decision. Okay, you know what? I'm not flying. And part of it was there's a 10-year commitment for it. I knew that probably wouldn't be able to coach at that point, and I couldn't see myself without being a part of football. So took that jump, ended up giving up my pilot slot, got into public affairs, which was a great career, did some really cool things during my time in the military, and was fortunate enough to get back to the academy and get into the coaching world. So tough decision I had to make at that time to do it, but it kind of worked out for me, I think.
It seems like it might have.
Can't complain too much, but yeah, just definitely a tough situation, a tough spot, and had to make a tough decision, kind of like what the academy had trained me to do the whole time. It was like, hey, there's going to be times where you're going to have to make a decision and jump all in, and so I did.
Well, it sounds like it was a very important and a monumental decision, and those are ones we don't take lightly. How did you come to that decision? I'm sure you weren't alone in getting that point. So who did you lean into? Why did you lean into them, and ultimately know that you had made the right decision?
Well, it started with my wife. I mean, obviously, we had kind of had this roadmap planned forever of what life as a pilot and as a pilot's wife was going to look like, and what the things we were going to do. So it started there, and we had conversations after conversations after conversations. I talked with Coach DeBerry. Fisher DeBerry is an amazing man in my life, mentor of mine that I called and kind of talked about some of the things of, okay, well, what if I do this? Like, what if I don't get back into coaching? And just, being able to have him as a sounding board there as well. But it was those people that were close to me, just having those discussions of, okay, is this something that I really want to do? And at the end of the day, just with advice and prayer, I came to the thought that, hey, yeah, this is what I got to do.
I think that's important to share that, you did it in a way where you leaned into your network, your family, your foundation. I think that's really important.
Yeah, we can't do these things alone. Sometimes we try, but obviously these life decisions, you need help.
Absolutely. So you got into coaching, and it seems like everything has kind of always been on an up for you, an up trajectory. Have you ever had failures other than almost dying in a tunnel?
Oh, yeah, I know. Those are the real stuff. This is what's interesting about the coaching profession, and you're going to move, and really there's two types of coaches: a coach that is fired, or a coach that's going to get fired. So it's just part of the business. And not many people know this, but my first coaching job was with Fisher DeBerry in 2006. I separated from the Air Force in July. Well, Coach DeBerry retired that December. So was I fired? Basically, that was my first, because had it not been for Coach Calhoun as he came in to retain me on staff, I would have been looking for work 6 months after I just given up my military, that lifestyle that I loved. And that was a thing too, is, we were going to stay in the military forever. It's just I love the lifestyle, but then an opportunity that I couldn't pass up, coaching football at my alma mater, came about. And so 6 months after, and what's going on? Right. I don't have a job. That one was a scare, kind of worked out. But then my first 2 years in the NFL, after my second year in the NFL, we're fired. Like, the staff is gone. Find work, find a job, go somewhere else. And you just start to realize that, okay, this is part of it. This is what I have to do. I'd kind of gone a pretty good streak where I'd either avoided getting fired or did well enough to not get fired. But this hit me square in the face. And I'm in the NFL. I think this is kind of the epitome of what I'm trying to do. And I'm told, no, it's over now. So didn't know where to go from that. Thought about going back to college, saying if I get into that world. But it was fortunate to stay in the NFL and keep grinding, as they say, and keep working. But no, there's successes and there's failures, and I mean, I've had some ultimate highs and ultimate lows in this profession, and it's I'm just glad I've been equipped to kind of deal with it with my time at the academy.
Right. Well, they say that in those moments, I think of great failure, there's, some forging of ourselves that happen. Can you talk through a little bit, and whether it's about being fired or any other time when you've experienced failure that has truly you felt it was a part of you've been shaped? How did you navigate that as a leader? Did it kind of shake you as a leader, questioning things about yourself? Or can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think as a leader, there's got to be some sort of foundation that you have and what you build on, and that's the main thing. For me, being a person of faith is something that I've always used as a foundation for me, to rely on that when those times of trouble kind of arise. And I think as leaders, you understand that, there's wins and losses. I mean, I coach a profession that you're basically judged by the scoreboard. That determines kind of your success or your failure. So it's really, right up front, did we win or did we lose? Boom, it's black and white. And those things happen all the time. But I do think some of the greatest lessons I've learned have been in the down times. I've talked about been to 2 Super Bowls. I lost one though. And that feeling after that game was unlike any other. And it's you kind of gotta have some time to deal with it, personally, and then you got to find a way. Okay, well, what do I got to do to move forward? How do I step? You can't spend all day in that mindset, not being positive. This allowed me, the success and failures that I've had in the NFL has allowed me ultimately to be at the point that I am, and I think also able to handle victory just like you handle defeat, and it's been a pretty neat ride.
For some of our leaders, when they are helping others navigate personal failures and loss, how do you coach them through that? What are some of the things you can help others in their navigation of that kind of time period?
It's really kind of leads me to this year. So Saquon Barkley, I know that he's a phenomenal running back that I get the pleasure to coach. Had just come from New York. His time at New York and how it ended, there were some things. And, there was a part of me that was like, okay, if I had been through what he had just went through, like, where would my mindset be? Like, what would I be thinking? First round draft pick, number 2, second pick in the draft, all this stuff, had success, but not really, major success. And it's like, so how are you feeling? And so we had a meeting, and I remember telling him, I wanted him to know exactly what I thought about him and his skills and his ability. And I let him know right off the bat that he's the best running back I've ever evaluated. Boom. That was a conversation, just us and really didn't know the impact that had whatsoever until he's on a podcast, and it's months later and all that. And he made the comment that, when he came to Philly, my running back coach believed in me more than I believed in myself.
Wow.
And I knew at that moment, you never know the one thing that you can say to a person, and it may be socially, it may be something, just some sort of inspiration, some sort of trust that can help them gain, and you just don't know. And sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's a simple action. But I think when you can invest in people and invest in what they are truly about and invest in them, that's the first part. That's the biggest hurdle of leadership there is, because they know you care. They know that you're doing things that's in the best interest for them. And I think in leadership, that connection point is extremely important.
So that's an amazing story, and it was one on your team, such a critical player and component to, I think, the success of this team. But how do you do that for all of them that you come into contact with? I mean, it reminds me of the academy, right? The best of the best going there. And how do you motivate the best of the best to that level of an individual investment?
You have to know them. Like, you have to learn their personalities, because what I did to motivate Saquon may not be the same thing to motivate my rookie or the next guy that's coming. It's all different. And I go back to, I have to formulate leadership plans for me of how I'm going to address these players. Yeah, there's an ability thing. There's a football thing. It's, hey, we can help you get better on this run or this path or these different things fundamentally. But it's the mental part of the game that's as big as anything. And the only way I can tap into that is sometimes bare my soul, bare who I am, like have honest and upfront conversations to be able to, hey, show myself being vulnerable at times, because it allows them to know, okay, this is a safe space. I can be vulnerable in here. And that gives me insight to who they are, how they're thinking. And when you have that, I think you can lean, they'll do anything for you and you'll do anything for them. But that's the biggest piece of leadership that I keep going back to. And it's funny, and kind of not to segue a little bit, you know, one of the things, and I don't know if you remember, so we were freshmen at the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
And Stephen R. Covey is talking to us. And it's the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Yes.
Okay, so that's Covey. And it's this whole thing and the whole process. Now we're just freshmen right there, 4 degrees.
Some people probably might have been sleeping.
That might have been. And just learn that. Well, fast forward, we're talking 2023, we sign an undrafted free agent player by the name of Britton Covey. So Britton Covey is the grandson of Stephen Covey that wrote that book.
Oh my goodness.
And Britton's dad, also Steve, is also a leader in leadership, writes books, all those things. So full circle, I listened to his grandfather speak, got to work with him on the football field, and got to meet his dad. And his dad actually gave me a copy of his book that he'd written with a little nice note inside from that. But it's like this leadership. And I bring all that up just to say, because, and Trust and Inspire is a book that I lean on heavily because it really fits my coaching style and my leadership style. And it talks about, hey, the transition from command and control leadership to trust and inspire leadership. And that book impacted me crazy, but it's his father I heard speak, met through his son, boom. And now that same connection is helping me coach. And I just, the values of trust and inspire and that type of leadership is me. Like that's the piece that I try to do. And it's, you mentioned it, whether you're in the field, the boardroom, whatever, I do think that we are in a world now where being able to trust your employees, being able to trust your players, being able to trust who's working for you, and finding ways to inspire them allows them to reach their ultimate goal. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to help a person reach their full potential. So crazy.
That is crazy. I'm still just kind of wrapping my head around how it literally came full circle. Who else? Are there other influencers in your life that have shaped you as a leader? I mean, that's an incredible story and book to lean on. Obviously, you talked about Fisher to Berry, but anyone else that has really shaped you?
Coaches have been a big part of my life, and I go back to my high school coaches. My high school position coach, Glenn McClay, was a man of faith, strong, and just unbelievable with just that. I was a knucklehead as a young kid. I'm just being honest. I had this crazy haircut, all kind of just coming from England, show up in the San Antonio, like, who is this guy? And I was, and he really taught me discipline, and he taught me how to work, and he taught me the importance of being a leader and how to lead and how you should respond if you are a leader. Was great. My defensive coordinator in high school, Don Lloyd, he was up just this past season, came up to a couple games, so I keep in close contact with them. But those were probably 2 of the guys that started my change, my transition as a young high school naive knucklehead into maybe a mature young man. And then just to go from that program and fall and be able to fall in Coach DeBerry's lap and let him mold me and take me. And he's just unbelievable, that the way that he coached, and he truly cared about me as a person more than just a football player. That's something I will never forget. And I was like, you know what, if I could be half of the coach that Coach DeBerry was, and with his players. I mean, the number of lives that he impacted at the academy during his tenure is unbelievable. But, set me on an amazing path from that. And just those guys at pivotal parts of my life and my growth were there and showed me the way. And I'm just so thankful.
Wow. I mean, everything that you've shared, it seems like we keep coming to this. You have really close relationships with the people that you connect with. It seems like with your coaches, with your players. Is that the secret sauce to your leadership?
It's the foundation. I mean, there's definitely that piece of that is, how do I connect? How do those relationships? And it's an old saying, being an academy guy, I got quotes and phrases and those type of things. I know. Exactly. No. But it is that my whole is, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yes.
And I've used that my entire coaching career. And I make it hey, I've got to connect on a level with this. Does it always work? No. I mean, I'm not batting 1,000, but it's worked a bunch. And I think that allows me to coach guys maybe harder sometimes because they do know that I kind of have their best interests in heart. But I gain that by showing my genuineness. Like, this is not a farce. This is not something fake. I care about you. I want to know what's going on with your family. I want to get to know your family. I want to get to know you as a person. And I just think that's important. We're all going through this journey of life together. Why wouldn't we want to do it with close relationships to those that are near us? So that it is. I'm trying to connect in any way possible. And also going back to I think because I've got interest in a lot of various things in different areas, I can usually find something. Okay, boom, we can click here. Let's start here, and we'll be able to build from that point. From anything. Hey, he likes to play golf. Oh, I play golf. He likes to fish. Oh, you like more. I like more. Just a bunch of different things. Like it's been amazing to be able to try and find those points with a player, to build on that, and it's important. It really is.
I mean, it sounds like you are certainly investing in the players, and it shows, right? I think you can see it in the translation on the field. Talk about what it's like outside of the building here. When you go home, what's Jamal like at home? What's home life, and how do you, I mean, lead as a father and a husband?
I've had a great little saying I've been using recently. My daughter rodeos. So she rides horses and that.
She's tough like that.
We used to call it tough as bull was the phrase. But my wife also grew up small town Texas, rodeoing, riding horses, doing all that stuff. So she's part of that. But she used to compete professionally and work that. She's kind of given up that to help our daughter. Like she's training her. So I'm not even the best coach in my house. My wife has got me beat. Yes. She's working with this 11-year-old that's killing it right now. But no, when I get home, I think there's a leadership level there. I think being a father comes with responsibilities. Being a husband comes with the responsibilities. And I think at the end of the day, I'm always going to try and be where my feet are, like be totally invested and committed into that. We talk at times, and it showed up. I think my wife posts out there. She's got a post of me, shoveling manure out in the field after the Super Bowl. So I was like, you want to know what humbles me? Horse manure humbles me. So it's not hard, but it is. So we go. We do have this farm. We do have horses. We do ride, and it's a total departure from what I do day to day. So when I go home, and literally my drive, I'm 30 minutes from the office. I get a time to decompress when I'm going home. I get a time to get revved up when I'm coming in. But when I hit the gravel road that leads up to my house, like that's my switch. Okay, I'm not coach mode. Now you rarely turn that off, but and I'm going into dad mode. I'm going into husband mode. I'm going in that. I have to try and be the best father and best husband I can possibly be. And my family deserves the same type of work ethic and hard work that I'm giving to my players at work, to the coaches at work. They deserve those same characteristics when I get home. So that's a big part of it, trying to be home. And that means, you can win a Super Bowl if you want, but you're going to shovel. You're going to get out there and you're going to work. And I always joke that the honey-do list hits different when your wife's country. So whether it's loading up hay, whether it's grooming the arena, whether it's shoveling horse manure, that's it. I wouldn't say it humbles me, but it keeps me humble. I think it's probably the best thing to do that.
I enjoy that so much. What have you learned as a leader from your wife?
Oh man, I gotta talk about grit. Like my wife is a tough cookie, and I told you she's a saint. She married an Air Force officer turned football coach. So she's glutton for punishment. It was going to be one way or the other. It was going to be hard. But no, she is such a tough, strong, independent woman. But at the same time, is just an amazing, caring mother, amazing wife. Just the things that she does. I joke. My wife, she drives an F-450 dually.
Oh, wow.
So she drives a big Ford truck. She hauls about a 37-foot horse trailer with this. And she does that that ain't me. That's her. And she's out whooping. Oh, she got a flat on the trailer, pulled on the side of the road, put it up, changed the tire, boom, and she's back rolling. So I love how she has this grit to her. But there's this amazing, soft and caring side as well. Really, for me, that's the part that I'm like, well, I kind of can be like I can be this tough, physical, strong person. But you know what? I also need to have this other side. I need to have this other piece that I think also helps me allow people in, so that those relationships that we talk about happening more. It can't be just give for them. And I don't know. It allows me to say, hey, I'm hard, I'm strong. but you know what? There's times when I'm weak, times when I can handle those. And it's okay to live in both of those worlds. And that she shows me that every day, just at work. She gets up earlier than me. She's out there doing the barn chores. She's feeding the animals. She's doing all that. And we have a petting zoo. So I just make sure we understand that. I've got too many donkeys. I've got 4 goats.
Oh my.
We've got 5 horses on our property. And that young lady goes out there and she does all that stuff. And it's amazing because she's building Mallory too, their time with that, with her out there and her working and her understanding work ethic and having to go out and do some of those things, clean water tanks, shovel manure, all that stuff. And I love it. Like I'm blessed to have married the woman that I've married, and we've been going strong since right after graduation until now. So it's been a really cool ride. And to have a rock at home like that is huge with what I do.
Especially since you're investing in your team, you're investing in your family. How do you invest in you?
That is, and hobbies. Like there's some things I don't get to do a whole lot, but I do get to do it every now and then. And for me, one of the great things that clears my mind is fly fishing. Getting out on a river, being in a mountain stream, and just taking deep breaths and just being thankful to God of all the blessings that I have, and all the things good and bad that have happened in my life. But it's those moments, it's that. And even my drive home, like I use those 30 minutes to transition from kind of my mindset. Tough day at work, bad, some things didn't go well, or a loss. Driving home after the end of the game after a loss, it's like, okay, use that time to just relax, just recover. And you walk into an 11-year-old and all she wants to do is see her dad. It's like that stuff kind of goes away pretty quick. So that's it. Family and maybe getting on a stream every now and then is a way to do it.
I love that. And in those moments of kind of just, is it music? Is it silent?
No, I'm a music guy. I don't do anything without music. I do barn chores with music. I do. Okay. It is that.
What's on your playlist?
And I've gotten really big. I mean, obviously, Christian music is big. Gospel. There's Christian hip hop that I'm a really big fan of, and it's because I still get the beat. I'm kind of a hip hop child of when I was born, but with a positive message. So it's I try to feed my soul, just the same way I feed my body with positive music and that, and it helps. I had great film watching it. I've either got my earpods in or I've got music playing no matter where I'm at, what I'm doing. So it is being able to do that and kind of connect in those moments.
Well, I wonder if this might be the answer based off of what you just shared about kind of investing in yourself, but what is something you do every day to be a better leader?
So I have a process, and I think everybody needs to have a daily process. So for me, it's wake up. The first thing I do is I always do a 365-day Bible reading. So it's just boom, that gives me something just to start the day, and it's that. And so usually, boom, I read that, and then I'll get in the car and I'm listening to worship music as I'm going to work. I'm prepping myself for work, and then my workout. So I'm going to work out, I'm going to lift, I'm going to do whatever I can just physically for that and kind of do some self-health. And I do that in the morning, and then it's locking time for work. But I think those little consistent behaviors, and it's always that. It's the things that you can do consistently over time, not, hey, bunch this out and don't do it. It's consistently. So I have no excuse. Every single day I can wake up, read the word, and that sets me into the path of my habits that I've established. So for me, that's the piece. I have something consistent. Is it flexible? Yes. Can I take my phone and be on the road and still read it? Yes. Can I be in the car and listen to it on the radio? Yes, I can do all that stuff. But I think as leaderships, us having our routines for ourselves allows us to be prepared. And I think the just physical nature of it, being healthy, trying to, eat right, all the little things just to be the best that you can be. I have an active job, so I want to try and move around at least a little bit. There is a coaching rule: don't ever demonstrate anything full speed because you're old and you're going to hurt something. But I want to be in a position where I can at least, get out there and move around and run. And that's part of it. The leadership. See, I'm sweating this practice as much, not as much as players, but like the players. So they at least see that I'm invested. Right. And I think that just having that daily routine is something. I think when you listen to most leaders speak, they say that all the time. There's a common theme. And I've stolen that from some of the leaders I've read about and watched as well.
So when you think about yourself and your growth as a leader, I mean, you've hit the pinnacle of leading the Super Bowl winning team. What's next for you?
Well, just as losing a Super Bowl is one of the worst things I think I've ever felt in my profession, winning a Super Bowl is the greatest thing I've ever felt in my profession, and unbelievable. And it's all what it's cracked up to be. We had a parade here in Philly. You want to talk about unbelievable? I've never seen that many people in one place.
Wow.
And it was 5.5 hours of just the most amazing celebration, people all over. We go to the Rocky Steps and you're looking, I can't see where the people end.
Oh, my
there's
goodness.
a sea of people, and it's like, I kind of want that every year for the rest of my life. That's what I want. And it's like, you get that experience and it's like, okay, this is in my profession with the role I play right now, that's success. And it feels good and it's awesome. And you see what it does to players and how their involvement and their winning. And you understand how hard that is to do. I mean, there's guys that have spent their entire careers and never even gone to a Super Bowl. Right. So the fact that I've been able to go to 2 and the fact that I was part of a winning team, 1, is unbelievable. But that's what I don't want the other years. Like every other year that I've ever coached football, I don't want those. Right. I want last year and I want it to start over. So it's really that mindset is, okay, well, what do I have to do better? What did we do that we can get better at? And it's really that attention to detail nonstop, because you know what it takes. You've done it. You know what it takes to get to that point. Well, the problem is what it took last year is not the same as what it's going to take this year. So it's the motivation of, I want to strive for that. And you look at some of the greats, put Belichick in that with his wins, Lombardi, just those guys, even Saban in college that have won multiple national championships. I get it now. I get where the drive comes, because it's what you want.
Right. Tasted it now.
I want every offseason, I want to be walking around, hey, Super Bowl winning team. Yeah, for sure. But that's it. Once you get a taste of that, it's addictive. It truly is. It's that success piece of going about it. But there's some foundational things that you have to do in order to do that. And, hopefully we can go again, and hopefully we can work, but it's going to take a whole new effort, a whole new game plan, a whole new everything, because what we did last year doesn't matter anymore.
Right. Wow. So what advice would you give to leaders for what they should do today so that they might achieve something greater tomorrow or down the road?
I think, and even for me, because I'm in a kind of a position coach, I'm not the head coach, those type of things. I think the biggest thing that you can do is lead where you're at. And it doesn't matter where you're at. It's not I'm not the CEO, or, I'm not the head coach, or, I'm not the commander. So the leadership comes in a million different ways. And I truly believe that, kind of what you do with the little things is how you do everything. And if in your position, whatever it may be, maybe nobody even works for you, you can still lead from that position. You can lead from that spot. And I think that's it. Don't be afraid to step out. Don't be afraid to be a leader in your own mind. It's got to start there. At some point, you keep honing those skills and then maybe you are going to grow. And then, hey, now you have 3 people working for you, but then now be a leader at that point. And it's kind of like what I mentioned earlier about be where your feet are. Well, lead where your feet are at. When I go home, lead. And that comes in a different way than when I'm at work. Lead. Well, whatever position you're in, lead. And there's by example, lead by work ethic, lead by motivation. However it is, there's no excuse. You can lead from any position, any spot that you're in. So start. If you haven't, start. It's getting reps. You're getting leadership reps every time you step out there. And those reps are only going to build the leader that you'll be later down the road.
Amazing. Well, we're going to ask Jamal for his final thoughts here next. But before we do, I'd like to take a moment and thank you for listening to Long Blue Leadership. The podcast publishes Tuesdays in both video and audio and is available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Be sure to watch, listen, and subscribe to all episodes of Long Blue Leadership at longblueleadership.org. So, Jamal, this is such an important moment for us because I think everyone's hanging on to, what are the final things you want to share with our listeners? Is there anything else that you want to make sure that they kind of ingest and take back from our time together today?
I think you could probably hear it in my voice that just what the Academy means to me. I mean, the Air Force Academy is I honestly, to this day, is why I'm able to sit here. It's why I was part of a Super Bowl winning team. It's why I coach in the NFL. It's why I have a good family life. It's why, I mean, there's so many things that really relate back to what I did at the Air Force Academy. And that was really the main start. And then even in the military afterwards, some of the lessons that I learned there. And I do think for the Academy, I think just intercollegiate, the athletic programs, like those things are huge. And I think when we're trying to build these leaders that are going to fight our wars, that are going to be part of that and go, the leadership that they can learn on an athletic field is huge. And just the closest thing, I think anybody, for me, the closest thing to the battle I'd ever gotten to was on a field. I mean, just the physical nature, whether it's the mat, the court, the field, we're seeing the role that athletics plays in the development of leadership. And there's so many great people that have played sports going through, but it's just such a great part of building young men and young women in ways. So I'm a huge supporter of Air Force athletics with what they do. I think it's a big part of the leadership training. And then when you combine that piece with what the Academy offers and the different lessons, they'll stick you in a tube in dirt and let you learn how to get out of that. Right? It's unbelievable. They'll let you almost drown in that. But no, but those lessons, if you take any piece away of my time at the Academy, you take any piece away, the product is different. And I think every piece is so vital. The education piece, the academic piece that you're kind of working, that's important. You know, the military training piece, the iron in your bed, it's important. I don't make my bed ever now. So
you don't have the 9 corners anymore? No.
My wife knows I'm not making the bed. But all those little pieces are important. It's the recipe for success for leadership. And if you take out this ingredient, you're not getting the same price. It's not going to taste the same. Right. And I think that's the pieces. The Academy is a phenomenal place. Every little pillar that's built on there is extremely important.
Well, this has been incredible. I can't believe 25 years flew by, but you're still inspiring me today, Jamal. This has been a pleasure, and I want to thank you for being on Long Blue Leadership.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. Great honor, and like I said, we've come a long way from those yellow caps.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. And I'd also like to extend a very special thanks to Stacy Kelleher, John Paul Beatty, Alex Barson, Wes Loria, and Haley McCullough, the team here who provided such amazing support for our production and studio space. I'm Navir Walkowitz. This is Long Blue Leadership. Until next time. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Long Blue Leadership. The podcast drops every 2 weeks on Tuesdays and is available on all your favorite podcast apps. Send your comments and guest ideas to us at socialmedia@usafa.org and listen to past episodes at longblueleadership.org.